Cowboy Church. That's as big as it gets. We're delighted you're here this evening. Thank you for your patience. Let me first make a few announcements. Please, absolutely please do not record this event. As you know, we have a thriving security team, and even though I've not instructed them yet, I would rather not instruct them to remove you bodily for recording the event. The good news is this event is being live streamed. You should be able to find it later on both YouTube and Facebook at the church's site. So if you need to text your friends, we've already publicized it that it's being live streamed. But please personally do not record the event. I want to take a moment as we begin to recognize a few of our own elected officials. These first few are actually part of our Cowboy Church. Down here on my far left, Steve Hunt and Boots Hawks. Both you guys stand. Elected board members with the Casa Grande Union High School, and then to my right is the Arizona House of Representatives Majority Whip, Teresa Martinez. And because somebody snuck into a service today, candidate Chris Lopez, on your feet, turn around. This is the man you vote for Tuesday. And because I'm not really swell with names, let's just say there's some others in the house. They have my full permission and blessing to work hard. No, he's on the program. He's special. Rich, go ahead and stand, Rich. Rich, running for supervisor, Pinal County on the east side. We are delighted that each and every one of you are here this evening. For the past 97 days, we have been praying for a great nation. As we begin the evening with prayer, we're going to do it a little different. We do things a little different at times at Cowboy Church. I've asked my wife and the great Cowboy Church band to lead us in a song that we've been singing for some weeks now. So would you stand with me as they sing, and would you sing/pray along?
Lord, we long for you to move in power. There's hunger deep within our hearts to see healing in our nation, on this land. Oh Lord, pour out your Spirit on this land. We ask you, Lord, pour out your Spirit on this
Amen, amen. Remain standing with me. I'm going to ask the next sheriff of Pinal County to come and to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. He's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. He needs to be up here where you can see him.
Thank you. And all veterans, you're allowed to salute. I just have to say that my company commander told me that I wasn't allowed to salute unless I'm in uniform, so he was a lot meaner than the rest of you, so I don't. If you please follow along with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Amen.
You may be seated. Thank you again, John Montgomery and Great Cowboy Church Band. The hour has come. This evening, our panel discussion will be moderated by Representative Matt Gaetz. As I call your name, go ahead and come to the platform, grab a chair, grab a microphone, welcome them. And our very own Representative Eli Crane. Amen. And Representative Andy Biggs. And we have a candidate, Kelly Cooper. So if he's on your ballot, be sure and cast it correctly. Welcome, brother. We're in trouble. He picked up a Cowboy Life New Testament. So this may go from a discussion to a sermon. All right.
I'll try not.
So we wanted to go ahead and get the evening started a little bit later. We expect our last and final guest, who really needs no introduction, but Senate candidate Kari Lake will be here shortly.
Well, thank you all so much. Have a seat. And when Kari comes in, we will all rise like the Queen of Sheba has arrived, and we will do the most terrific and worthy ovation for her. But it is so exciting for me personally to be back at Cowboy Church. Many of you here were here with Andy and Eli and myself and Paul Gosar and our good friend Steve Bannon when we talked about the vision we had to lay out to save this country. And right now, I feel like we are in the middle of the fight, and that I am among the warriors who matter, who are going to deliver that victory. I really feel that. And we're not at the beginning of the fight. 60 million people have already voted. So many of you have worked your social networks and your personal networks and your church networks to get those folks out to vote. We have never looked better in Arizona in the last several cycles, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But I also don't want you to think we're at the end of this fight. I don't want you to think that on Tuesday, even if we prevail, that we have reached the summit and that the battle is over, because there will be important work to do to ensure that we bring some of these agencies that have been turned against the people to heal, and we will not allow the momentum that all of you have generated in this campaign and in this effort to just run through the fingers of the corrupt hands in Washington. We have to have a catchment apparatus for it, and we have to convert it. You know, the work we're doing now is to convert the energy to the votes, but then we have to convert that electoral victory to the changes in Washington and the changes in policy that we see so clearly, but who so many who control the agendas in that town seem to miss. And we're very excited about playing offense. Isn't that what Mr. Bannon tells us all the time? Playing offense. And Kelly Cooper has run such a spirited campaign here in Arizona to take out Greg Stanton, who is a terrible member of Congress. And I really wanted to start hearing from you, Kelly, about as someone who's knocking on the doors and talking to Arizonans, what is it that you want to change about Washington? How can you help us in this fight to ensure that we get the right spending policies and border policies so that people can live better lives?
Wow, so what's not to change,
yeah.
Right? You know, I go through my district and I talk to voters every day, knocking on doors, all the same things that you folks are doing to help Eli and all the rest of us get to where we need to be. And what I hear more frequently than anything else is that it's just a corrupt swamp. Now, you've all heard that before, and I don't think there's any questioning that that's the truth. But when I'm talking on stage and when I wrap up most of my conversations, there's two things that I say and I think are most appropriate for here. One, the glory goes to God. But the work belongs to all of us. He's not doing this for us. We have to go out and do that work. And the other one, and I think it gets lost a lot, would we rather be a country under God or a country under government? And there's a very distinct difference between the two that we have to recognize. So as I hope to be able to join these gentlemen in DC, you know, the fight is about being responsible about your money. The fight is about making sure that we bring faith back to our nation. The core fabric of our society, who we are as a people, and what does that mean to be an American? You all know it's cultural Marxism versus American exceptionalism, right? And so as a Marine Corps veteran, a small business owner, I have 3, soon to be a 4th restaurant in the Valley. That is what I come armed with. I come armed with the same kind of background that someone like Eli has. There is no quit, there is no bow, there is no give up. It's making sure that your views, your needs are represented in Washington and that your money's not wasted.
Amen. I spent yesterday morning knocking on doors in Sun City, Arizona, and there was a lady who answered the door. She looked like she could have played middle linebacker for the Arizona Cardinals. She answered the door, and I said, I'm Congressman Matt Gaetz. I want to make sure you've got a plan to go and vote. And she said, well, you're a congressman. My question is, why does Congress suck? And I said, because not all of the states give us congressmen like Andy Biggs and Eli Crane and Paul Gosar. If every state did, we would be in a lot better position. But, you know, Andy, you have been looking at some of the data. When I called Andy, he was blaming me for bringing this Florida weather to you here in Arizona. But Andy, talk to us about where you think we stand right now. And, you know, if folks, the effort you put in at the end of these elections really does matter the most. You know, an extra hour you can give us in the next 48 hours probably matters more than a week you could have given us 2 months ago. But talk about where we stand and where you think the energy needs to be directed at this hour.
So the numbers in Arizona look really good. And I don't want to get complacent about that, because when you say, tell us where we need to go, we need to find those people who haven't voted yet. We need to find those people who haven't returned their ballot yet. We need to get them to go in. Go vote tomorrow. Go vote tomorrow. Take that ballot and go vote tomorrow. Let's get it done tomorrow. But here's I'm going to give you some numbers just to give you some ideas. So this guy here, Eli Crane, who they're really gunning for. They're really gunning for Eli. But today's numbers, I want to say he's up like 50,000 returns. 50,000.
Republicans lead there by about 50,000. Gosar's, we don't even count that because they're so high. That's unfair. He's got a plus 35 district. But then we get to somebody like Kelly Cooper. Now, this is what you need to know. He's in a Democrat kind of leaning district, right? So what they are, Matt, is they're sitting on, a week ago, he was down about 2,000 returns to the dim good. And then 5 days ago, he was down by 50. The next day, he was up by 1,000. The next day, another 1,000, and today he's just under 3. He's just under 3,000. So you want to change the landscape in Washington, D.C., I'm going to tell you right now, Kelly Cooper, if you can help in his district get those people, make the phone calls, help the texting to remind people, go vote, go vote, go vote. We need those people to get out and vote. Because if they get out and vote, hallelujah, Kelly Cooper wins, and we become probably a 7-2 district, 7-2 state. And I'll tell you why. Because down in CD6, down there in southeast Arizona, Juan Susquehanna was down about, I'm sorry, that's CD4, yeah. He was, no, you're CD4, but I'm talking southeast, yeah, CD6. Yeah. It's 6 down there. So down there, he was down a good chunk last week. It kept getting closer and kept getting closer. And then Friday, you know what happened? All of a sudden, there were 1,000 more Republican ballots in than Democrat total. That was a flipperoonie as well. And now he's about 4,000 up. So now he's about 4,000 up. And this is the momentum that happens because so many of you are out there talking to people, getting your neighbors to vote, and reminding the low propensity voters. When we say low propensity, these people forgot they're registered to vote. They don't know why their life sucks. That the problem is the government. And so they can make the change. And so if you can help Kelly out, and if you can help Juan out, make sure you don't ever forget Eli. We got to have Eli. Eli he's the most valuable freshman in the entire stinking United States Congress. Eli Crane.
Not only the most valuable freshman, but to many of us, myself included, without question, the most personally inspiring member of the United States Congress. Eli, I want you to empower these folks because we all know somebody. I know some of these folks who say, I'm not going to vote because I don't think that the elections are secure and I don't think my vote is counted anyway, and so I'm not doing it. I'm sitting out in protest. And when I encounter those folks, I say, you are waving the white flag of surrender over your country. You might as well have aligned with the Tories during the revolution because we have got to have you on our side, the people who want to make the needed changes. But as you encounter those folks, and I'm sure there's a batch of those votes we could influence tonight with the right text message, with the right social media post. What's the message out to people who say, I don't have enough trust to even participate in the process?
Well, thank you, Matt, and thanks for coming out, and thank you just for being a champion around the country, man. I know you've been traveling all over the place, and it means a lot. I also want to say thank you to you guys for coming out tonight. It means a lot. I know that a lot of folks on Sunday night are trying to get ready for the next week, and you guys chose to be here with us, and it's just a reflection of the momentum I see around Arizona. But it is interesting to go back to Matt's question. This is something that has really boggled my mind because as American citizens, and I'm as guilty as anybody, we love to complain about politicians in Washington, D.C., don't we? I do it too. But here's the thing. Who keeps sending these folks back to Washington? We do. There's millions of Christians right now that will not vote. Do you guys know that? There's millions of Christians right now that do not vote. And here we sit in a church with a pastor and leadership, church leadership, that hasn't been passive, that is actually engaging in culture. And I'll tell you this. I want to tell you guys, I know many of you guys study the scriptures, But if you go back and you look at a lot of the biblical greats in the scriptures like Daniel and Esther and Nehemiah, I am so glad that all of them decided to engage and fight in the culture that they were in. And for all of you Christians out here who, you know, you may have your reasons for not voting, but you said, well, we didn't get exactly what we wanted, so we're taking our ball and we're going to go home. I challenge you to show me a war, whether it was, you know, in this world or anywhere else that was won by passivity, okay? This is a fight for our country, guys. We have to engage in it. And I understand the frustrations, especially with voting. We're in Arizona. Trust me, I get it. I don't believe that our elections have been as honest, transparent, and, you know, and as fair as the mainstream media would have us believe. But that being said, we've got to get out there. We've got to engage in this culture. And so it's great that you guys are here, and it's great that you guys are talking to your friends, your neighbors, and your family members about what it's going to take for us to turn this country around. Because the thing is, if you have a country that's of, by, and for the people, but those people are checked out and complacent, it's going to create a vacuum. And that vacuum right now is being filled by exactly what you're seeing it filled with: this totalitarian, cultural Marxist, socialistic, you know, regime on the other side of the aisle. And I got news for you guys. They don't give a rip about your freedoms. They don't give a rip about your prosperity. They care about one thing and one thing only, and that's power. And you guys know it. All right. So let's stay engaged, and let's run through the finish line on this one.
Amen. Amen. I don't believe there's a member of Congress who studied the intricacies of the border policies more than Andy Biggs. Oh, there she is. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Kari Lake. Come on up, Kari. No problem. It's okay. Kari, you've been out on the trail in one of the most important Senate races in the country. How's it going?
Oh, well, is this working?
Here, we'll give you this one.
I'll be real loud. First of all, I'm sorry for my tardy. One of these will work. There we go. Oh, guys, you're a sight for sore eyes. I need more than 24 hours a day right now, and I think we all feel that way, and we're working really hard. We hit the rain on the way down. We've had a bunch of events today, but I'm so encouraged by what we're seeing. I think you guys feel the same way, right? We were at church this morning, and here we are in a place of worship, and it was standing room only. They announced we were going to be there. 200 people in the outdoor area where they couldn't get in, but they had screens up for the service. And it's amazing. Hi, Teresa, how are you? It's amazing. Christians are with us. We've got Arab Americans, we have Muslim Americans, we have Jewish Americans, we have Hispanic Americans, Black Americans. We're all together. This is such a unifying movement, isn't it? It's amazing. So I'm happy to be here with you guys tonight, and let's resume.
So, Kari, that debate that you had was a clinic in how to expose the liberal agenda and the harm that it is doing to people. You were phenomenal in that Senate debate, and I was wondering if you could just tell us about how the race has changed since then and how your vision is getting through to voters who might have really tuned into the Senate contest for the first time when Arizonans were watching that.
Well, I think for a lot of people, we're just out there working really hard. We're trying to make ends meet. We're trying to raise our families, help our kids and grandkids. And some people haven't really been paying attention until the bitter end. And here we are kind of at the bitter end. And so we had this debate with my opponent. And unfortunately, no surprise, it's not, when I tell you this, you're not going to be shocked. The media has not done a good job at covering my opponent. Because I will tell you this, if I had a convicted felon, Mexican cartel drug trafficker as a father, I think you would know about that by now, right? If the cartels took out my uncle, I think you would know about that. And I'm not casting judgment on Ruben Gallego. But once your family is involved in the cartels, it's really hard to get out. It's very hard. We've all seen the movies. The reality is even worse than the movies. And if you really believe him that he hated that part of his life, then he would be voting for secure borders. He would be voting to take down the cartels, not empower the cartels. And so the media has not exposed that. They didn't expose the fact that he walked out on his wife when she was days away from giving birth. And I don't tell this to try to drag out personal stuff, but if I had a messy divorce like that showed a real character weakness, they would, instead of calling me an election denier, they would call me like, the worst person in the world. And the media has not done it, so I think we've done a better job at really telling you kind of the dirty underbelly of Ruben Gallego, the fact that he's voted with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris 100% of the time. I mean, first of all, I don't agree with them 1% of the time, right? Can anybody here name one thing they've done right? I didn't think so. Now listen, even if I love somebody, my husband is in the room somewhere. Where are you, Jeff? There he is back there. And I love that man, but I don't agree with him 100% of the time. And that's the beauty of it. We can disagree, but Ruben agrees with Kamala Harris 100% of the time. And that's a scary thing. We can't vote for someone like that in the U.S. Senate. It's going to be really scary. But I feel very good about where we're going. Where I think things have changed, guys, is that the polls were not accurate. I'm seeing the ghost of 2016 come upon us. Remember that? How many of you remember, because I was a supporter of President Trump, although I had to keep my feelings quiet because I was in journalism. I was a supporter of him, and I remember vividly the polls that said Hillary Clinton, 98% chance of winning. Do you remember that? And then how many of you popped, your champagne bottle when Trump won that night? I did. Not Andrew. I called home and I said, Jeff, I hope we have a bottle of champagne, but we're popping a bottle of champagne tonight. President Trump just won. And 98% chance Hillary was going to win. President Trump won. They're doing the same thing right now because the media has lost control. They're spiraling out of control. And they have nothing bad to report on me. I don't have a voting record. I'm MAGA 100%, if that's okay with you. And so I will never forget it. It was about 4 months ago, and I think they thought I would be in the middle of a trial with the guy running our elections. But we kind of did we decided to change the way we handled that lawfare. So they wanted me to be caught up in a trial of lawfare. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. And they said, what are we going to run on her? We thought we'd be in the middle of a trial dragging her down. And so they said, let's just pull out the phony polls. And I went from 2 points up in the public polling to 15 points down in 1 week. Honest to God, guys, you'd have to commit mass murder on video. And then you still would not drop 17 points, honestly. And so I've been trying to say this, these polls are garbage. I know what our internals show. But more than that, you are the poll. And I talk to more of the people of this great state than any pollster in America. I talk to more people in Arizona than any human being in the face of the earth, to be honest, every single week and month, because I'm with you every day. And the people are fed up. They don't want to have to scrounge for money to get food on the table. They don't want to have to worry about the people pouring in, driving down our wages. They don't want the fentanyl pouring in, falling into the hands of their children. They don't want World War III, where they're sending their sons and daughters off to another war. And so I already know where we are. We are going to win this if we turn out. But it's in your hands now. Eli's worked his heart out. Matt's incredible. He's the best. Matt Gaetz is flying into Arizona. He's already going to win this, but he's working his heart out. They've called Congressman Biggs every name in the book, and he's working his heart out. Kelly Cooper has turned a blue district into a red district. That's amazing. It's amazing. So it's up to us right now. How many of you have 3 friends?
They're all here.
I was hoping a few more hands would pop up. I need you to call 3, 5, 10 friends. Make sure they're voting. If they haven't voted, tomorrow's an emergency voting day. If you have any issue, health problem, you got to sign an affidavit. All you have to do is sign an affidavit saying, I can't show up Tuesday. If it's health, whatever it is, go vote tomorrow if you can't vote Tuesday. If you got a health problem, you can't wait in line 3 hours, vote tomorrow, sign that affidavit, or show up and act like you're waiting in line to see President Trump at a rally. If you have to bring a tent, bring a tent. There's no excuse. If you don't vote, then don't talk to me. Do you feel the same way, guys?
Yeah, and if your friends and family aren't sufficiently annoyed with you yet, you have not done enough. If they're not telling you, leave me alone, I'm going to go on election day. No, you want to know what their plan is, and then you want to make sure they execute on the plan because you're the tip of the spear. Now, Andy, a lot of us are enthusiastic about President Trump's victory, but that victory will only be fulsome if we have the right people in the Senate to confirm his nominees to make the changes. And especially on the border, which is what I want to talk to you about. You know, if we end up with like a 51-49 Senate, you're only going to get the people conservative enough to get the Murkowski-Collins vote. If we get Kari Lake elected and Eric Hovde in Wisconsin, if we are playing offense around the board, then the quality of the people we're going to get is going to be so much higher. And so take us to that day after. We wake up on the 6th of November. We've surprised the world. We've shocked them. Kari's going to go lead the fight for us in the Senate. We've got a bigger majority in the House because Kelly and others have gotten there. What are the things that people should be expecting to see in those following hours, you think?
So what should happen immediately is a series of pieces of legislation such as energy. So I won't get into energy, but you got to open up the energy flow, right? Because that'll cut down on your prices. But on the border, you have to have better legislation than HR2. HR2 is the best legislation we've had probably in 40 years. You got to have better than that. You got to start taking away funding from the NGOs that are putting up signs that are welcoming people and recruiting them to come across. And you got to give the funding to finish building the wall. You got to restore those contracts. You got to make sure that you got enough Border Patrol agents down there. And guess what? Most people don't realize this. Only 30% of the cameras that are even there even work. How about that? That's crazy. And so you got to take care of that. And quite frankly, I'm going to tell you one thing that's one of my pet projects is that's to hold people like Alejandro Mayorkas accountable. He must be held accountable. That's what we do, Matt.
Eli, I remember when you were first elected, folks said, gosh, the smart minds in Washington said, if only anyone else had made it through that primary, because Eli Crane is such a different kind of candidate. We don't know if we can sand the rough edges off of this guy and get him through, but you had a resounding victory. You're poised for another. You know, reflecting on the last 2 years, what do you think surprised you the most about Congress? You know, when you were preparing for it, and then now that you're ready to return as a veteran.
Yeah, I think one of the things that surprised me most about Congress were the people that I saw often on Fox News that were touted as conservatives who, when I actually watched how they cast their vote, weren't very conservative at all. And so, you know, there's definitely levels to, you know, who's who in the zoo and how they vote. That was definitely surprising to me. But one of the things that was surprising, and I was trying to figure out the last 2 years, is who's most hated, you or Andy Biggs up in Congress? You know, and at first I thought it was Andy Biggs. I used to sit next to Andy on the House floor and say, Andy, you're the most hated guy in here. You know, and it's like everybody, you know, if Andy had a bill up on the House floor, almost everybody would vote against it because he's so conservative and he makes everybody look bad. So they always take his votes down. And but then I realized after we fired Kevin McCarthy, Matt, that it was you, in fact, that was the most hated guy in Washington, D.C. So I don't know, maybe Andy will try and take the title back from me this year, but I'll tell you guys this right now. I'm honored to be surrounded, a friend and mentored by some of the most hated guys in Washington, D.C. And the thing is, if they hate you in Washington, D.C., you're probably doing a damn good job.
Kelly, the thing that upsets me the most when the media criticizes our movement, whether it's them calling us the deplorables or whether it's Joe Biden calling us garbage, is that we actually want the things that are good even for the people who hate us. Like, a secure border is good for people who don't like us. Safe streets, low prices, access to cheap energy. You see, we don't want the DEI policies and the policies that divide America. We actually want everyone to do better. In a race like yours, you've got to convince people who maybe don't have 4 MAGA hats in the closet to vote for you. Talk to us about some of the unifying themes that in these final hours, we can pitch to folks to get them to vote for Kari and Eli and yourself.
Yes, so that's great. When I'm out, and my wife's in the front row here, she could tell you this. It's compassion, it's empathy, right? The people that are struggling with high energy prices, high food prices, high housing costs, they can't figure out where they're going to pay for their medicine or their groceries. They don't know if they're going to be evicted next month. They all have the same issues that we have. And so it's compassion and empathy. It's talking to people, and when you go and knock on a door, or when you answer a phone with somebody, it's genuine, right? How are you doing today, and what can I do to make things better? And people know it. They know whether you're full of garbage or not. Just remembered I was in a church. They know whether you're full of garbage or not. So they can tell whether you're being genuine or not. And so when you're being genuine with someone, and you ask them what's important to them, they open their heart to the other things that you want to talk about. Don't beat them over the head with the things that are maybe 20% issues or 50% issues. And this is 4 years ago, one of the first meetings that I had, one of the very first people that I talked to before I got into Congress. And for those of you that don't know the story, never ever in a million years thought I would be a politician. Never ever in a million years thought I would be doing this. But I believe that those that have the ability have the responsibility. And so I called Congressman Biggs and I said, hey, can we meet up? And I'm Joe Nobody from nowhere. And he literally takes the time to come meet with me in a coffee shop. And he says, you need to focus on 80-20 issues. You need to focus on the things that are going to move people. If you're busy being caught up in 50% issues, in a district like yours, you're very likely to lose. And so I spend most of my time with empathy and compassion talking to people, asking them how I can make their lives better. And then I talk about the policies like improving energy, reducing costs, making sure our border's secure, making sure we don't have fentanyl pouring across the border. Every single person in this room has been impacted by every single one of those things. But the truth is, so is the left. And the saddest part is yesterday when I'm electioneering, I'm at Red Mountain. And every time I go to a polling station, I make sure and I go talk to any of the people that are working for the Democrats. Not because I'm trying to be smug or mean. I'm a genuine person. I want them to know that when I'm representing this district, if I'm blessed enough to be doing that, that I will represent the best interest of all of the people. So I go shake all of their hands. And 9 times out of 10, I get sourpuss back. I don't get happy and joy like they try to present on the presidential campaign.
Maybe you're getting brat instead of joy. That's the other thing they do.
So it's compassion and empathy. That's the way we win hearts and minds. The issues are the same across the board. So remove that division, and we talk to them with compassion and empathy. That's how we.
Yeah, they don't seem to have that compassion and empathy in the ads I see about you on television, Kari. It's like Kari Lake, who has horns and lives under a bridge, and I'm seeing all this, and I think about Kyrsten Sinema, and not my cup of tea, but not totally insane. She was not from the Venezuela wing of the Democratic Party like Ruben Gallego. This is no joke. Ruben Gallego would immediately be the most liberal or the second most liberal member of the entire United States Senate on his first day. And so that would mark not holding serve, but a dramatic turn left. And I look at some of his votes, even on the military, where you would expect him to want to support merit over judging people by the color of their skin or their country of origin. You know, some of the votes that he's taken are really troubling. What are the Gallego votes you're pointing out to people to showcase just what a dramatic shift left he would be?
Well, I want to say something real quick about Kyrsten Sinema. Senator Sinema actually did something very bold and courageous when, as a Democrat, she stood up and protected the filibuster. I don't know if everyone in this room understands how strong and powerful that was. That may have saved our country. I disagree with her on probably 95% of some of her policy issues, but I mean, she got chased into a bathroom by a leftist radical. They wanted to hunt her down in the bathroom. And so I respect that. And Ruben Gallego bullied her for a year and said she's way too conservative, even though she's not. She's just courageous. And he said, I'm going to go after her. And honestly, he's the reason I jumped in this. We can't have someone this radical. We just can't. And he has already said he wants to get rid of the filibuster, literally for everything. If it's Monday morning and he's tired, he wants to get rid of the filibuster. If it's Tuesday afternoon and he's mad, he wants to get rid of the filibuster. He said he wanted to get rid of the filibuster in the summer of 2020 when our cities were burning down, when they were burning police precincts, tipping over cop cars, calling the police racist, which he, by the way, called our law enforcement racist. He wanted to get rid of the filibuster in that moment to pass the George Floyd legislation that he co-sponsored that would defund our police nationwide. That's disqualifying, guys. And get rid of qualified immunity. How many of you have law enforcement loved ones? Or you know how important qualified immunity is. That is the layer of protection that allows our officers to do their job. It's so critical. And he wanted to get rid of that while our cities were burning down. So he's radical in every way. He just recently signed a letter, 2 letters that stood out to me. We all saw what happened in North Carolina, in western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, when the flooding happened. We still don't even realize how bad that was. It was really bad. And a year prior to that, he signed a letter to FEMA and said, we need you to spend every penny you've got taking care of people who are pouring in illegally, getting their roots in the ground, getting them settled into America, even though they're here illegally. In 2 years' time, we spent almost $1 billion settling people who poured across our border illegally, invaded our country. And then this crisis strikes, and Americans who've never asked for one thing, you know these families have never asked for one thing. And when they finally said, we need help, there was $0 left in the coffers. Because Ruben Gallego wrote that letter and said, spend $1 billion settling illegal immigrants into our country. I can go on and on. He signed a letter recently saying, I will not support, this is according to his letter, active military pay increases, which God knows they deserve, unless we add on to that the ability for them to have taxpayer-funded sex changes. For them and their families, by the way. And, you know, same thing with Kamala. She wants people in prison, whether they're prisoners or illegals in prison, to get taxpayer-funded sex changes. When did this sex change thing become the thing? Because it's crazy, it's dangerous, it's bad health care, by the way. Look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a biologist. I know the difference between a man and a woman. It's pretty easy. The amazing thing is our kids know the difference as well.
When I saw that report that she was for taxpayer-funded sex change operations for illegal aliens in prison, at first I thought that must have been a deep fake. That couldn't have been real. And then I got to thinking about it, and really the only part I oppose is that it's optional. Because if you think about it, it'd be a pretty strong deterrent. If you show up here illegally, you get a sex change operation. I think that, you know...
Hey, hold on real quick. Kari, didn't Ruben Gallego vote against the SAVE Act?
He voted against the SAVE Act. I mean, the only problem with the debate I had, did you see the debate?
Yes.
It was only 1 hour. I needed at least 4 hours to go over his record. He voted against the SAVE Act. He actually cast a vote to have people here illegally get asylum and vote. He's voted twice to have illegals vote. Literally, you name it. Girls having to compete against boys in sports. He voted for that. I don't want my daughter having to change and shower while a boy is watching her. I don't, guys. And I also want my daughter to be able to, she's 21 now, but she actually told me, not many things make me cry. I haven't cried in a long time. But we were walking one night, and it was just in the kind of when COVID was we were coming out of COVID, and my daughter said to me, she's just the most lovely human being in the world. Everyone who knows her says, everyone who knows her, when they meet her, they go, we like you even more because if you raise a daughter like that. I was just at, my pastor this morning said, your children are your resume. And I thought, that's so big. That's so big. But I digress. But she said, Mom, I really think if we hadn't been sent home from school and forced into masks and if COVID hadn't happened, I think I could have been really good at track and field. She was so enjoying it, and it was taken from her. And that generation, Gen Z, I'm so proud of them. They're showing up. You know where she is right now? She's knocking doors in Mesa. She's knocking on doors. That generation, they realize that if you don't get involved in politics, somebody else is going to decide the fate for you. They're going to be charting the course for your future. And this Gen Z generation, let's not be too hard on them. Because let's face it, they have been brainwashed for 14 years. They've been sent to school, told to look at an obvious boy and think he's a girl. And they've been told that if they don't agree with this radical woke agenda, they have to write papers where they have to go, what does my teacher want me to write? Not what is the right thing to write. So we got to go a little bit easier on, and I'm going to say this not because I want them to be woke, but we all know, because I think we're of a certain age, the most horrifying abuse you can face is emotional and psychological abuse, right? If you've studied history, because physical abuse, you see the wound and it heals. Psychological and emotional abuse stays for a long time. This young generation have been the victim of psychological abuse. They've been pushed, woke agendas, Marxism, to hate our country. They've been messed up in the mind by people they trust. And the fact that they're coming out of that and voting with us is absolutely remarkable. I think Gen Z is going to help us save our country. I really do. So literally anything you look at that's insane, any leftist policy, it probably came out of the Progressive Caucus in the House, right? And Ruben Gallego was in leadership in that Progressive Caucus. Did they do the paper straws? Or was that Kamala Harris?
I don't know.
Whoever it was, I think it was Kamala Harris. Whoever pushed the paper straws, I mean, think of all the crazy stuff, the sex change operations, the men and women's sports, the radical policies. They all came out of the Progressive Caucus of the House. Ruben Gallego sat at the head of that. And he's running $100 million in ads to try to convince you he's some sort of a moderate. He's trying to trick us and he's lying to us, and we cannot let our friends, our loved ones vote for him.
Yeah, that's something I want to add real quick. When I watch this guy's ads, I can't believe it. I'm like, oh man, he looks like a moderate problem solver, right? He won't run on his record. He won't run on any of this craziness that Gary's talking about. And that's what these guys have to do. They won't even tell you they're a Democrat on their commercials because the Democrats have gone so far off the reservation. So I know probably nobody in this audience has been fooled by any of Ruben Gallego's ads, but they're definitely spending a ton of money trying to throw the wool over a lot of Arizonans' eyes, but we cannot have another radical senator here in Arizona.
He's the most, by the way, and you guys know this because you work with him. Maybe you don't even know this because maybe you don't talk to him all that much. He's the most radical leftist in the House that no one's ever heard of. He's more to the left of AOC.
I don't know, Stanton might be up there too.
Who is it?
Stanton, my guy.
Stanton. Well, does he vote at 100? Well, they're both bad. Then we got to get rid of both of them.
So Gallego, Andy and I had an amendment to the National Defense Bill just to ascertain the extent to which the illegal aliens entering the Goldwater testing range might have been hurting the military mission, because we want to make sure we're getting all of our tests done. And Ruben Gallego and the Democrats who are in the majority blocked the amendment, not because he disagreed with getting the information, but he insisted that they be called irregular migrants, not illegal aliens. And would not allow the military to issue the report unless they weren't called illegal aliens, the people wandering into the Goldwater range. And it draws into sharp focus the need to focus on our own people and our own issues. And Eli, you've been to places all over the world. You serve on the Homeland Security Committee, but also you have worked in Congress to try to stop diluting America's promise and wealth and money in faraway lands, and to get that focused on our people. And some hilarity has ensued as you have attempted some of these efforts in your amendments. And I wanted you to have the chance to share the story of when you offered your USAID amendment and how we were unsuccessful in that.
Well, I think you do a better job of telling the story, man.
It's your amendment, Eli.
Yeah, so how many of you guys are tired of sending, billions of dollars overseas when we don't even take care of our own people? So the amendment that Matt's talking about, my staff and I, we drew up an amendment that said that we would cut 50% of the USAID monies that go overseas. And I think we only got 40 votes?
USAID is a venture capitalist fund for businesses in other countries. And so we're going an extra $1 trillion in debt every 100 days in this country so you can pay for, and this is not hyperbole, this is an actual one they funded, transgender female makeup artists in Nepal. Now, I think that Nepal should pay for their own transgendered female makeup artists. You shouldn't have to pay for them. And so Eli just had an amendment to say, tell you what, while we're going into all this debt, why don't we just reduce that by half? Whatever we're doing, just cut it in half. And we only got dozens of votes. We had Republicans and Democrats join against us. And it shows not only that we need more people like Kelly there, we got to defeat the Stantons and we got to defeat the Gallegos. We have to have the courage and the fight in the members to actually present these questions. And I think that's what's really exciting to a lot of people about Kari Lake's candidacy. You won't just get another our vote, you'll get an actual fighter for the people of Arizona and the people of our country.
I don't even think guys, I don't think we're Democrat versus Republican anymore. Look how many Democrats are coming over. We were in Tucson and we had more Democrats come up. We actually have an office down there because I'm not giving up on Tucson. I'm not giving up on our blue cities and blue counties. The people are suffering there. We had more Democrats come up. We had a Democrat, she's a first-time Republican voter, and she said, I just can't afford anything anymore, and we voted Republican down the line. We had a beautiful black woman who had voted Democrat, and she said, I'm sick at what the Democrat Party thinks about me and people who are black, that we owe them our vote. You don't owe the Democrat Party a damn thing. You don't. And then, this is all in a matter of 20 minutes. We had a beautiful Hispanic Republican. She said, I've been Republican forever, and I'm voting for you and President Trump. Your values align with my family and with making sure that we have a strong economy. And I reminded her that Ruben Gallego once told a Republican Latina woman, you're not Latina if you're voting Republican. They think we owe them something. This isn't Democrat versus Republican. This is Americanism versus communism right now. And frankly, I don't want an R behind me. I want an M behind my name for MAGA. Is that okay? I'm going to have an M behind my name when I get to the Senate. And what does that mean? That means, somebody said, that means you're going to bow down to President Trump. Now, I happen to love the guy, by the way, because he loves our country. Loves our country. And he's pushing an America First agenda. It works for our state. That means we're going to secure our border. We're going to bring back a strong economy. We're going to bring manufacturing back. We're going to stop having these politicians sell us out to, overseas countries. We're going to bring back our greatness and excellence here in America. And as long as we're pushing that agenda, I'm going to be voting for that. 100%. And then someone said, well, you called Rubin a rubber stamp for Kamala Harris. Well, it's true. He was a rubber stamp. Anything she wanted, boom, he was rubber stamping. Will you be a rubber stamp for President Trump? As long as he's pushing an agenda that's putting our country first and Arizona first, yeah, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. If he were to start losing it and push against us, then I won't vote for that, but I don't think he's going to do that. And the beautiful thing about President Trump, I want to tell you this because I've become good friends with him. I have challenged him. I have disagreed with him before. He's so open to an argument and a discussion. I don't think the other side is. I don't think they are. They threw Kyrsten Sinema under the bus in a heartbeat when she said, we're going to keep the filibuster. They are not for that. You either fall in line with their Marxist agenda or get out. We actually are open to discussing and debating. I might not agree with, actually I do think I agree with Eli on everything, but if we didn't agree, I think we could have a conversation about it. If we didn't agree on things, I think we could have a conversation and come to some sort of consensus. On the left, you don't get that opportunity. Once you turn your back on them in the slightest way, they kick you out. And that's not who we are as Americans.
Absolutely. One of those issues that's really bringing a lot of those Democrats over. When we look in the polling and the focus groups, when Democrats become aware that Kamala Harris supported cashless bail when she was a prosecutor in San Francisco, they're not for that. Andy, you chair the crime subcommittee in the Congress. We've been all over the country. We've been to places like Milwaukee and New York, and we have seen these policies devastate communities where they take the protections away from the cops, where they defund the police. And I think in places like rural Arizona, we feel insulated from that. But when you get the major cities that allow lawlessness, we're seeing where that's migrating over. I thought you could reflect on that.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to make this point. The left says that crime stats are down. That's a big fat lie. And they know it's a big fat lie because more than half of the jurisdictions don't even report their crime data to the FBI anymore, including places like LA, New York, Chicago. And why don't they report them? Well, because, you know what? They're embarrassed. They know that crime is out of control. And it gets out of control, Matt. We found this out because we had Democrats come and sit right on our panels. And the Democrats actually that were supposed to be on our committee there, they kind of start shutting down. They quit coming to these hearings because their own side is saying, you've really turned our city into a crime-ridden dump. And so the bottom line is, we have got to say in Congress, guess what, sanctuary cities? Guess what, DAs who won't prosecute? There's a 14th Amendment protection, and we're not going to give you federal dollars until you stop it. You got to enforce it. That's where we go.
Kelly, you're in the home stretch here, and we're so excited you're running. And I want everybody, when we conclude tonight, when you take photos with us, when you post them, please put vote in that post. We can create a little boost, a little micro boost in this area in Arizona if everyone here that takes a photo is out there pushing and encouraging people to vote. But what's your closing message to voters to get the folks inspired and to get folks over onto your side in these last hours of the campaign?
Yeah, I believe America's got a very bright future. I think that we are sitting probably in some of the darkest times in the history of our country right now today. And that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. That means that all of us have to show up to make that change. Because the sun rises after November 5th. We get to start making those changes immediately on November 6th. Now, my opponent, for those of you that don't know, tried to defund the police. He was one of the original defund the police mayors. He tried to turn Phoenix into a sanctuary city. And you imagine Phoenix further down the road of LA and Chicago and Boston, New York. That's what he tried to do. Now, my background is in business. So when I see a jobs report that says that we created 12,000 jobs and the majority of them, 75% of them, are government jobs, that's a sign. But it's a bigger sign of the real symptoms and the real corruption and disease that's gone on in our country. If we're creating more government jobs than we are private sector jobs, that's a Band-Aid. That's hiding unemployment. And eventually that house of cards collapses. The government is not supposed to be a self-licking lollipop. The government is not supposed to grow into infinity. And the only source of income for that government is in your back pocket. So it's time that we all stand up and make that change. Because we deserve it. You deserve it.
Kari, we have done so many of these together. I feel like you've been on the road campaigning for like the better part of half a decade now. And I wonder if there's a story from someone you've met on the trail that you think is really going to stick with you. In this last campaign, I had somebody come up to me who I'd advocated for when they were off at a base in Niger, Africa. And a lot of folks had forgotten about him. I was bugging my colleagues and everybody else to get them the equipment and really the rescue they needed. And that was very touching to me. But is there an experience you had, a constituent you talked with that you think when this is over, that'll really be in your heart?
There's so many. I mean, I'm so blessed to be able to talk to so many Arizonans and to have covered this state for 30 years now. I don't feel that old, but I have. And I should say, Kelly's opponent, I used to cover him when he was mayor of Phoenix. He's the only mayor who ever ran away from me when I came up to him with a microphone. He's afraid of little old me because I wanted to ask him a few questions about trying to drag Phoenix into a really bad place, which has gotten even worse since
He's
then.
afraid of the truth.
He's afraid, yes. I'm going to bring up a couple, and these are just, one is it's a story I'm going to talk about, which is many, many people have come up to me. And it's usually after an event like this, and there'll be somebody who's kind of lingering around waiting for everyone to leave, and they come up and there's just a look of sorrow in their eyes, and it's a mother, a grandmother, a father, and they've lost a child to the fentanyl scourge. It is the hardest thing ever. To see a father grab you by the arm and he's got tears in his eyes, or a mother say, my son was 60 when he was taken from us, and he wasn't a drug addict. He took what he thought was a Xanax pill. Look, our generation didn't do that, but this generation's much different. Or a 22-year-old, I'll never forget the woman who said, my 22-year-old daughter took a half a pill, and she had a young child, and now we're raising that young child because she's gone. We've lost a generation of young people. 100,000 a year, that's what they say, it might be more than that, are gone. This is 18 to basically 40 years old. We're losing a generation because we've empowered the cartels. We've got an open border, and we got to stop that. I wish I could tell you I've only heard that 2 or 3 times. I can't even tell you how many times someone's come up to me on the campaign trail, and they've all asked, please promise me when you get into office you'll do something. I'm going to confront these cartels. I don't care. I'm not afraid of them. I'm a middle-aged mom. And when you're a middle-aged woman, you really don't care if they're part of a cartel. We're taking them down, and President Trump's going to help us do that. Take these people down, bastards. And then I had another story, and I don't mean to have negative stories, but I'm going to also give you one positive. I had a woman come up to me. She lives in the West Valley up in Maricopa County, and she said, I have been a volunteer my whole life. I volunteered at the food bank. At the holidays, always donated food, and she's a retiree. She's an older woman. She's single. And she said, for the first time in my life, I've had to go to that very same food bank and ask for help. This is happening more and more. If we do not have a change in this country, I fear we're going to have hundreds of thousands of Americans slip into poverty and tens of thousands slip into homelessness. And it scares me to death. That's what, I don't have a lot of fear. I fear for what happens to this country if we don't win this election. I really do. But I also want to tell you the good stuff. The people who come up to me, the Democrats who say we're voting Republican, we're going to vote for a change. The people who come up and say we're praying for you. We have a prayer group going on. We now have talked our whole neighborhood into voting for President Trump and getting this country back on track. There's something very powerful happening right now, guys. Can you feel it, or am I the only one? I get to talk to everybody, so if you're not out talking to each other, because sometimes we haven't been talking to our neighbors. That was the whole point of 2020, 6 feet apart, masks on our face. They didn't want us talking. But I'm talking to everybody, and the people are coming around. This is so powerful. Like I said, Jewish Americans, Christian Americans, Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, Black. I mean, I look at us all as Americans. We are coming together and we are realizing we're voting for our future. And I'm so empowered by it. I'm so excited. We need you to go talk to 3 friends between now and Tuesday. Just 3. Tell me you've got 3 friends left after all this. Get them out to vote. And I'm encouraged by you. It's not about me. It's not about Eli. It's not about Matt and Congressman Biggs and Kelly. We're here. We want to represent you. It's about us. And if we don't stand up and fight for this country, I don't know where we go, guys. Yeah. So I need you. We need you to get out and vote like your lives depend on it, and your children and grandchildren. Get at least 1, 2, or 3 people to go out and vote Tuesday, and do not get out of line until you cast that vote. Thank you so much.
By the way, that's a terrific point Kari made, and I'm going to let Eli close us out in just a moment. But if you go and vote and are observing something in the apparatus that is not right, we need you to video that and collect that evidence. If you see him kicking folks out of line, there is no better frontline defense than an informed citizenry that is engaged and aware, not going to let any mischief happen again. So please take that as a charge as we leave. I was, and I'll forgive the Biggses and the Cranes, they've heard me share this story before, but I was recently in New Hampshire when President Trump had his primary there, which I thought was a pretty cruel thing to do to a boy from Florida, to send me to New Hampshire. But there I was all bundled up, and I stumble into a coffee shop, and this barista runs up to me and she says, "Congressman Gaetz, my boyfriend is going to be so upset that he wasn't here. He's a big fan of yours. Can we take a photo and send it to him?" I said, "Well, are you sure you're going to vote for President Trump in the New Hampshire primary?" She said, "Oh, I'm going to vote for him." I said, "If we send this photo to your boyfriend, are we sure he's going to go vote?" And she said, she looked at me with steely resolve and said, "Congressman, I am so for President Trump. I am not just going to get my boyfriend to vote for him. I'm going to get all my ex-boyfriends to vote for him too." And I've been telling that story around the country to encourage people to get your in-laws and your outlaws, your vexes and your exes. And I know it worked because my wife has been texting all of her ex-boyfriends. And so it'd be a cruel joke if that's the only one who does it. But in these final moments, I get a sense that it is a lot of young men who we need to inspire to get up and vote. And it's a lot of these folks in their late teens, early 20s, and throughout all of America's history, we've been able to rely on young men to fight in times of revolution, to fight in our world wars, to create some of the greatest technologies and businesses and enterprises. And all we need these young men to do today is pry themselves away from PlayStation long enough to get out and vote. And I know you're a girl dad, Eli, but I'm hoping as you bring us home tonight, maybe talk about what your message would be to some of these young men in all of our lives that we're really relying on to get out there and help us save the country.
Yeah, I am a girl dad, and I'm a proud girl dad. They've taught me a lot of patience. You know, I'm a lot like Kelly. I'm a veteran myself. I never thought I'd be in politics, never wanted to be in politics. But as I watched the trajectory the country was on, I was like, you know, you've got to try and do something. And for those of you guys that have heard me talk before, I don't consider myself a great congressman or anything like that. There are some pretty good congressmen up on this stage. But I just watched these guys, and I watched how outnumbered they were in D.C., and I was like, you know, I may not be a lot of things, but one thing I'm not is a turncoat, and I'm not a sellout. And And I didn't make you guys a lot of promises, but I said, if you guys send me up there, I will fight for you. And, you know, that has been absolutely my experience. And here's the thing, our founding fathers understood, they understood this. They gave us a republic, but it's up to us to keep it. And this is what I think keeps us all up here at night, whether or not we're going to keep it or not. Because, you know, even though I feel like we have momentum in this election, when we zoom out to the 30,000-foot view and how the left has slowly worked their way in and creeped into all of our institutions over the last several decades, I feel like they've taken a lot of ground. And I'm very concerned that we're not that far from socialism. I'm very concerned that we're not that far from top-down totalitarian control. And so one thing that gives me hope, though, is to see guys like Kelly Cooper, who said, because I'm going to tell you guys right now, Kari can tell you this, Andy can tell you this, Matt can tell you this. Some people do a better job than others. I think Matt does as good a job as anybody in the country, but it's not always fun running for Congress. It's not always fun to be sitting around with your friends having dinner and to see an attack ad on the TV right behind you, with your face on the TV, and they're just beating the snot out of you on TV. It's not always that fun. But when I see a guy like Kelly Cooper who says, you know what, I'm going to devote the next 4 years of my life to trying to be a part of saving this country in a Democrat district, that gives me hope. That's fight right there. And it's the same for Kari. It's the same for Kari because she's done the exact same thing. And the stakes are higher in her race because those commercials that I'm talking about, those text messages, the digital ads, the mailers, it's 100, maybe 1,000-fold in her race. That's how much they've already spent, over $100 million trying to tear you down and destroy you. Yeah, people that are in this know that it's not fun. It's not fun having your character tried to be destroyed. I used to think foolishly that my integrity and my character was one thing that nobody could take from me. And then I got into politics and I realized that's really not true. But it does give me hope that I'm surrounded by great people up here who love this country. It does give me hope that I'm here in Cowboy Church once again, surrounded by great people who love this country, who chose to spend their night with us. And many of you guys have already got out and voted. Matt always gives me a hard time, and his wife tells him to knock it off. But when I start talking about, he'll say, Eli, when we speak tonight, are you going to give a full sermon or just half a sermon? And I'm just going to tell you guys right now, we can have the best candidates in the world. We can have great representatives. We can have much better policies. But if we leave God out of it, we are going nowhere. So guys, the last thing I'm going to ask before we get out and we shake your hands and we get to take some pictures with you guys is that, like we've been saying, if you haven't voted, please go vote. And then please go get your neighbors, your friends, your family members out there to vote too. Reach out to them on social media, text and everything. But please, guys, continue to pray for this country and pray for these folks up here who are in the right in the mouth of the lion, okay? We could use your prayers. We can use protection. And thank you guys so much for coming out. God bless you. Thank you.
So if you guys will sit tight, and those of you, if you're also elected official or running for office, if you want to join us on the platform, I realize this was not a worship service, but when we gather at Cowboy Church, we often end by pronouncing the Old Testament blessing and benediction over the congregation. But we love to take this opportunity to bless you. And so all of you there, as you know, in Cowboy Church, if you will extend your hands this way and repeat after me. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you. And be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you. And give you peace. Now you're free to leave. Thanks for being here.